Good afternoon, class. I thought I would do a lecture really for week two, which is coming up. Week two basically is going to cover everything from Sunday, which would be the 18th of January, to the 25th, which is the following Sunday. Um, Basically, what I'm going to be going over is going to be that peer review for Essay 1. I'm going to show you where you can find the Essay 1 topics, sort of talk about the assignment sheet a little bit. Um, Briefly go over the sort of the skeleton or the brief, like paragraph by paragraph outline that I sent out via email a few hours ago. That will be helpful as you start to draft your own particular descriptive narrative. Um, and I will also show you where you can find that MLA 9 formatted template within your Microsoft Word, because we're going to be using MLA 9 edition format when it comes to everything that you type up essay-wise in this particular class. Keep in mind the quiz. Quiz 1, the syllabus quiz, is due on the 18th of January, which is basically this Sunday. So if you haven't completed the quiz, you got Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So you basically have 3 or 4 days left to get that done. For the ones that have completed it, the grades are sort of up and down, right? I mean, some are really good, some are sort of in the middle, some are not that great. Keep in mind, because it is a syllabus quiz, and you're not using the Respondus Lockdown browser for quiz 1, you will start needing to use the Respondus Lockdown browser, and I talked a little bit about that and some of the previous information that I sent out either via video or email. There's information about where to go to download the correct Respondus Lockdown browser, because starting quiz 2, for each quiz that we do between, quiz 2, which will happen sometime, I think it's the beginning of February, until our last quiz, you're going to have to use that Respondus browser to be able to complete it. But getting back to what I was talking about for quiz 1, you can use the simple syllabus for the course. You can open it up and use that as you go through. It's sort of like an open notebook or open note quiz. So you can use that if you want. It's optional. You don't have to. Um, but if you think that would help your grade, you can kind of use it. And again, as we get closer to the end here, April, first part of May, I will drop either one of your lowest quiz grades or one of your lowest peer reviews. So if you don't do so well on this first quiz, don't fret too much, because you still have, 14 or 15 more assignments. You can pull that grade up. It's just right now, whatever you make on it until you do the peer review, which is coming up on the 25th, your grade is either going to be really, really high, depending on what you made on quiz 1. It's going to be sort of in the middle, if you made sort of like a middle grade, or it's going to be on the low end of things if you don't do so well. So, do your best. Use the syllabus if you want to, because it's there. You can open it up. You can have it. But just, kind of keep in mind, there's other assignments in the course that will help you pull up this grade. Anything is better than a 0. Let's just put it that way. You don't want to have collect, 3 or more zeros, I would say, because I mean, if you get more than 3 zeros, chances of you passing the class are really, really low at that point. Okay, so we're going to talk a little bit about the peer review. That's due next Sunday, not this Sunday. We're going to talk about Essay 1, which deals with the peer review. The final draft for Essay 1, as you can tell on your Blackboard page, will be due on Sunday, February 1st by 11:59 p.m. Most of the due dates are Sunday due dates, but again, as the semester progresses, you might want to double check to make sure they are Sunday due dates, but they're usually due before 11:59 p.m. Once the clock hits midnight, the Dropbox disappears, it shuts down, and whatever's not there, of course, is going to automatically grade as a 0. So that's why you want to kind of keep that in mind. You do have a good bit of time to do these things. I wouldn't wait necessarily last minute to try to get stuff done. Because if let's say you start at 11:45 on Sunday, and you're thinking, hey, this quiz is going to be really easy. I want to be able to get this done. And all of a sudden you know, it hits midnight and you're still on question 14. Well, guess what? If you didn't save anything, then it's going to submit a blank quiz and it's automatically going to grade 0. Now, if you did save something, then obviously I can grade the 14 that you did, but if you whatever's left over is all going to be marked wrong. So kind of keep that in mind. All right, so I'm going to flip over and I'm going to show you, basically, I'm going to pull up what you should see on your Blackboard page as we start to talk about peer review 1 and essay 1. So the peer review, the information for the peer review is right here. So if you click here, you have the directions, you have, the questions that you're going to need to do, and you sort of have the grading rubric for it. This is how I'm going to grade this particular peer review. So you'd have to pick a topic from the essay 1 assignment sheet. I'm going to show you where you can find that here momentarily. But the instructions basically are post your essay or upload it, Microsoft Word files only, right? You want to use a Microsoft Word file because it'll be easier for your peers to download it, to read it. I will try to read some of these as well. I mean, if you want me to look at something in particular, I would definitely, send me a Microsoft Word attachment email to my, to my email account, right? Using the Outlook. So, because there's so many essays that I'll be looking at between now and then from other classes as well, I may not be able to read everybody's rough draft. So if you really want me to, zone in on your rough draft, or if you really want some feedback, send me an attachment via email. What I would suggest that you probably do is maybe go through the peer review, revise whatever your peers have told you to sort of revise, and then send me a fresh copy of that revision. That way, one set of eyes, meaning your peers, have already looked at it. I would be the second set of eyes, or if you want to submit your draft to tutor.com, revise what they have to say, then submit it that way, you can. Either way is fine with me. It's optional as it relates to rough drafts to me and rough drafts to tutor.com. But I will say the more eyes that look at your paper, generally the final draft grade is a lot better than it would had you not had anybody look at it. So it says, number 2, read at least 2 classmates' essays, respond to each using the questions below, right? And we will talk a little bit about those questions. There's 9 of them. Your responses should be thoughtful and specific. Quote examples from the essay when possible. After receiving feedback, please reply to your reviewers, thanking them and noting one change you plan to make. So when you look at these peer review questions for discussions, right, you're going to pick 2 essays and you're going to read through them. And hopefully, if the person that you are reading those 2 essays, they have at least 3 to 4 pages, because you may not be able to answer all 9 of these questions, depending on how well the essay is written, how long it is, that type of stuff. But if you look, number 1, what stood out to you most in the essay? Vivid detail, decisive moment, or interesting idea. Number 2, does the essay clearly tell a story or describe an experience? If not, what could make it more straightforward? Number 3, find one sentence with strong sensory details. Sensory details, as I marked up on that particular outline that I sent out earlier, really deals with your 5 senses, right? Hearing, touching, tasting, smelling. Because you are, besides telling a story, that's where the narrative comes in. You're using descriptive language, right? Figurative language, sensory language, vivid verbs, strong adjectives and adverbs to describe your particular story or moment, right? It also says with number 3, quote it and explain why it works well. Number 4, suggest one place where the writer could add more description. Number 5, does the essay have a clear beginning, middle, and end? Of course, that's part of a narrative, right? It tells a story, goes from point A to point B to point C. If not, what could improve the flow? Point of view. Is the point of view consistent? If not, where does it shift? Keep in mind, because you're writing a descriptive narrative, you are telling a story. A lot of times when you write these, depending on your topic, of course, the point of view is going to be first person, meaning you're part of that story. As the writer, you are sort of that character. You can kind of call yourself a protagonist in this case. You should be using pronouns I, me, and we, right? Singular or plural first person. You want to keep your verb tense because more likely you're talking about something that happened yesterday, right, in the past. So you want to use past tense verbs more so than present or future tense. You want to avoid using second person point of view, which means you don't want to use the pronouns you or your unless you're quoting dialogue, let's say from a character or a quotation. Third person is acceptable. First person, obviously, because it's probably going to be a story about you. But you want to avoid the second person pronouns. You also want to avoid using a lot of contractions. You want to spell those out. So instead of writing didn't, you want to spell it out and write did not. That will give you two words instead of one. It looks a little bit more professional and academic. So if you're worried about, word count, if you spell out all your contractions, you will at least get 2 words out of those. Find one sentence that feels awkward or unclear. Suggest a revision for that particular sentence to make it less awkward or to make it a little bit more clear to your audience. What is the strongest part of the essay? And number 9, what is one specific suggestion for improvement? Now, again, if the essay is fully completed and it's written really well, you should be able to answer all 9 of these for your partner. If not, then you can only sort of answer what you can answer. And that means that particular peer's probably got a good bit of work to do before they can really get a good final draft ready to be graded. The rubric is right here, initial post, right? It's up to 30 points. It details what will get excellent, full points, or partial. And partial will be anything between 0 and 30 in this case. If I go through it and look at it, if your essay, because initial post is basically going to be what you uploaded. If the requirement is to have at least 3 pages and you upload 1 page, well, you're not going to get 30 points. You may get 15. Depending on how well that first page is written. You may get 8, depending on how well that first page is written. So kind of keep in mind of that. It's between 0 and 30. The peer review responses, right? How well did you answer those 9 questions? Did you, review 2 essays and provide answers to those 9 questions to both of those essays? Again, it's between 0 and 50. That's really where the bulk of your grade is. And then, of course, I will sort of add in any kind of follow-up or, replies back. I mean, the last 20 points may be kind of a given, but I will see how things go. But definitely you want to respond to at least 2 peers' essays. You want to be able to answer those 9 questions. And what you can do is you can open up a Microsoft Word document, copy and paste this into there. Make sure that you put the person or the peer that you're reviewing. Let's say hypothetically, John Smith would be the first one. You put John Smith up top, put these 9 questions below his name and answer those, and then, sort of space down. Let's say that you're reviewing Jessica Lane is your second one, and you do the same thing. You'd put the 9 questions below her name. We need to know, or at least I need to know, that you did answer 2. You did read 2 essays. And you need to upload those 9 answers back to that particular partner that you are reviewing. It should be really an easy 100. The peer review really is here to help you and to help your partner become better writers, better readers, better proofreaders, better editors. We will only do three of these, right? We have one for essay one, essay two, and then if time allows, we will have another one for the final exam. We won't have one for the midterm essay since that's a 1 hour timed essay using Respondus. We're not going to do a peer review with that. But I will give you more information as it relates to that particular essay when it gets closer to March. So that's the assignment that's going to be due for next Sunday, the 25th. Now, to get started a little bit more, if you click on the Dropbox, this is where you're going to upload your final draft as a Microsoft Word attachment. The one that you want me to grade as your final draft. You will find embedded here the assignment sheet. You can click that downward arrow, and I'm going to download this. You can download it too if you want. But this is what the assignment entails, the parameters, and what you need to do. So essay one, yes, descriptive narrative. You need to use the format MLA 9, double space, Times New Roman 12 font. I will show you again where you can find that template here momentarily. It needs to be 3 to 4 pages or 750 to 1,000 words. And when I mean 3 to 4 pages, I really mean 3 to 4 pages. Don't give me 2, but at the same point, don't give me 5. I want you to stay within 3 to 4. If you find yourself going to page 5 and 6, you need to go back and sort of cut it. If you're finding yourself you can't get past page 1 or 2, then you probably need to pick a better topic. Because 3 to 4 is a good link, a good word count for the first essay assignment. And the overview of this particular assignment, it says select a particular topic, a major happening, a special place to you, a meaningful object, or a cultural activity in your area. After you have decided on an area of focus, however, the next step is to write a story that captures what it was like for you in that reality, right? You should include vivid descriptions that engage all 5 senses. Again, this is your sensory language and details. Storytelling methods, this could be a little bit more of that figurative language, right? Metaphor, simile, personification, that type stuff, onomatopoeia, stuff that you've probably heard in other literature courses in high school. So the storytelling method should help people imagine themselves being there with you and explain why this is important as we go along, right? So if you look, I give you 5 topics. If you have a hard time coming up with a topic on your own, you just want to choose one. If you don't like these 5 topics, but have another topic in mind and fits the descriptive narrative rhetorical mode of writing that you need to do, the issue with that is that's fine, but I need you to email me and let me know what type of topic you are planning on writing about. One, because I need to make sure that whatever topic you choose now or have in mind, you will get that 3 to 4 page linkage. Because you may have a really good topic in mind and it may sound good on paper, but I've had students that sort of didn't let me know about that, and they went ahead and started writing on that particular topic they had in mind, and they couldn't get past page 2. So they wasted 2 or 3 days writing it, realizing the peer review was due the very next day. So what did they have to do? Well, they had to go back to the drawing board, pick a whole nother topic, and take a good bit of their final day before the peer review was due, typing it up, thinking about it, writing it, that type deal. So here are the 5 topics that I have listed. Again, you're free to pick something else. If you don't like mine, that's fine. I just need to know where you're going to go with it. Number 1, a moment in nature that brought you unexpected peace. Number 2, a place from your childhood that still lives in your senses. Number 3, a moment when you realized you were growing up. Number 4, an object you have kept for years and the story it carries. And number 5, a cultural or community event that shaped how you see belonging. So again, these are really, 5 good topics that I've used before, that students have written before, and, most of them were between the 3 to 4 page range. But again, if you don't relate to any of these topics, you do have that sort of 6 topic as the writer's choice to pick something else that would fit into a really well written descriptive narrative essay. I give you some directions to sort of follow, right? Um, to approach, brainstorm. What places have left an impression on you? What moments do I return to in your thoughts? What experiences have shaped how you see the world? So these things can kind of get you started. If you're having a difficult time really picking maybe a topic or coming up with something, you want to brainstorm, maybe have a essay outline to kind of help you get started. Number 2 and 3, choose a focus, a location that evokes strong emotions, a moment of change or realization, an object or artwork that resonates with you. Write with purpose. Use vivid sensory language to describe your subject. Include narrative elements, which when you look at that particular outline that I sent out a few hours ago, that has character, setting, conflict resolution aspects, and build in on that. Reflect on the meaning or impact of the experience, engage the reader's imagination and emotions. And then I sort of give you some tips for success. With a narrative descriptive essay, you want to do more showing through your sensory language, your vivid verbs, your strong adjectives, and literary figurative language rather than just tell me a story. There's a difference between showing than telling, right? It says use imagery and detail to paint a picture. So when your audience, your peer, me, when we read this essay, we want to have a little bit of a mini movie going on in our head. We want to be in your shoes. We want to see what you see. We want to hear what you hear. We want to taste what you taste. We want to touch what you touch. That type stuff. That's showing more so than telling. Um, so the other thing is, before I look at that particular piece that I sent out earlier, if you're wondering where to find the template for the MLA format, if you go into your Microsoft Word, whether it's the cloud version that's on free, and I will show you that here momentarily, where you can find the free version of Microsoft Word. Let me pull my email over. This is your Office 365 email account. Once you lock in, if you go down here where it says in this square, it says more apps, you click on that, and it's going to open up several icons, right? You have a free PowerPoint, free Excel, free OneNote, and then you have free Word right here. You click on that, follow the instructions. It's basically the cloud-based version of Word. So you don't have to download anything. You don't have to buy anything because it's already there, within or embedded in your Microsoft 365 email here. Now, if you're using a desktop version, hopefully you have the updated version of Word, and you will find your template by going to the File button. And if you hit New, it's going to look like this. Now, I've been using the MLA stuff for so long, mine's already up there. But if you need to search for it, you want to go into the search for online templates, type in MLA and hit enter. And it'll probably come up with a few things, right? You have the first 2 are MLA style. One is a research paper, one's a 9th edition. It doesn't matter which one of these that you use. They both are going to do the same thing. I'm going to pick the second one here. You click on it, you hit create, and it brings you to this. Right? Now you can read the information here. It's really good information about MLA. You don't have to, but what you need to do, because this is not your name, that's not my name, that's not the course, you're going to change this to fit what it needs to fit. So you're going to put your name in there. So in this case, I'm going to put Kim Jones. Let's just say that. You can leave professor, but you can kind of, if you want, or you can put, Mr. Wilson. That's my name. The course number is English. 1101. So you can abbreviate English that way. And the date, you want to put the date that the paper is going to be due. So I'm just going to hypothetically put this. But right there, you have your header. You have your first and last name, my name, the course number, and the date. Up here, you want to change the last name because this is not Jones. So you want to double click there, erase that, and put Jones. Now, when you go to page 2, we hope that's going to change. Sometimes it does, sometimes it don't. See, as it goes from Jones 2, it will go to Jones 3, so on and so forth. You need to have an essay title. Right? It needs to reflect the writing to come. Don't just call it narrative writing, narrative descriptive. Just don't call it paper 1 or essay 1 because everybody's having to do that. Come up with a catchy, creative title that's going to fit the writing that comes. So that's why when you look at this particular title, it's going to, fit the writing to come. So you want to make sure that you do have a title. It doesn't necessarily have to be really lengthy. It doesn't have to be a complete thought, but you do need to have a title. And if you notice, every time you begin a new paragraph, you do have a paragraph break, and you do use the tab button or indent 5 spaces. Right? So you always want to indent your paragraphs. So at this point, what you can do is just highlight all this stuff and erase it and start typing your own new information in there. Because if you use this template, as you can tell, what you're going to need to do probably is you're going to have to, at some point, you're going to have to make sure that everything is in Times New Roman 12. Right now it's font size 12, but it's not Times New Roman. We're going to find Times New Roman. Let's see. And it's not Times, so make sure it's just Times New Roman, and you're going to change it. Double space, it should already be double spaced if you're using a template. If you're, sort of not using the template, you want to, which I hope you are, because sometimes trying to do this without using the template in front of you or already sort of built becomes can be kind of a challenge. But if something happens and if it knocks it into, let's say, single space, you want to use that little arrow for paragraph. Click it, go on down where it says spacing, and where it says line spacing, you have single, 1.5. Yours wants to be in double. And then, the margin should be already set to 1 inch all the way around, so you shouldn't have to really mess around with that. And the good thing about using this template is you can save pretty much your header, right? If you save this essay on your computer, and when we start talking about essay 2 in February, you can come back to essay 1, keep all the header stuff. You're going to have to change the date, obviously, because it's a different due date. You're going to have to change the title because you're writing on essay 2, not essay 1. And of course, the information here where the body of your essay would be different. But you can go ahead and erase all that and start typing your new stuff. So you can have this header already ready to go for each one of the essays that we have left in the course without having to go back and trying to find the template over and over again. But again, if you need a little bit of additional help, you can always go to YouTube and look up MLA 9 essay format and can kind of go through maybe a little bit. Sometimes when you look at these YouTube videos, they take 30 minutes to show you what I just showed you in about 5 or 10 minutes. But if you are one of those people that need to see, like every single thing broke down, then you obviously feel free to use a YouTube video to help you do that. All right. So that's the template. We talked about the peer review. We looked at the topics. Let me pull up what I sent out earlier. And again, I'm probably just going to go over the high notes because if you look, these bubbles or these little comment boxes, I do provide additional details that will help you as it relates to these sections. So you definitely want to read those before you start the draft. When you send me a rough draft, if it's in a Microsoft Word form, I'm going to be able to highlight areas that you need to improve. And I'm going to make these little comment boxes too in the margin. And if you follow those comment boxes, meaning you fix or revise what you need, then you should start to see these comment boxes be reduced each time you send me a draft. And that's telling me, and it should be telling you, that your grade should be improving from one draft to the next. Because your first draft is always going to be that crappy one. Just expect it. If you send me a rough draft, you're probably going to have a lot of these comment boxes. You want that. You'd rather have those comment boxes now, so you give you, a week or two to sort of revise before you submit the final draft. Because if you have 30 comment boxes when you submit the final draft, chances are your paper is not going to receive a very good grade. So in a lot of ways, depending on how strong of a writer you are, you may have to go through 3 or 4 rough drafts just to get a really, start to get into that between A and C range, right? If your goal is just to, get a C, you may only have to do 2 or 3 drafts. If your goal is to get a B, you may have to do 4 or 5 drafts. If your goal is to get an A, and you've been out of school for 15 years, you may have to do 6 or 7 drafts to be able to get that. The issue is as we get closer to April, I'm hoping that because you're sending drafts and you're starting to learn from your peers and you're taking the feedback from me and tutor.com, and you're going through and revising and proofreading and spell checking and editing your own paper, by the time we get to the research paper, you already have a good bit of these skills under your belt and you can do a lot of this stuff before sending me or tutor.com or a peer a rough draft. And maybe by then you won't have to submit or send 7 or 8 rough drafts to get that A. Maybe it's only going to be 3 or 4 now. You can do your own editing and proofreading without sending me draft after draft and having, 30, 40, 20, 10 comments on the margins, right? We want to see those comments on the margins decrease as we get closer to April. We want to see your grammar and your language and your organization and development skills better with these essays as time moves on, right? The spell check and the grammar check that's built into Microsoft Word, utilize it. You can, save a lot of these easy points by learning how to spell words, learning how to use commas and fix fragments and run-ons and that type stuff. Because really by the time we get to April, I really want to focus on the deep underlining issues, right? I want to look at your unity, your coherence, your organization. I don't want to keep putting comments about, hey, you don't know how to spell this word, 70 days into the semester, or hey, you're still having issues with using a semicolon when we talked about that back in February. Those little things, what we call in our field surface errors, I want you to be able to take care of those on your own as we get closer, to March to April. So if we look at this, a particular outline, this topic that the student did was the night I drove through a storm alone, right? So it's a descriptive narrative of a young person who, since then has, really become an adult, but they're thinking about that first time they turned 16 and they got that license and now they're driving on their own and they're probably getting off late from work one night and it's just raining cats and dogs outside. Not too many people on the road because let's say they're getting off at 11 or 12. So they're trying to drive back home during this thunderstorm. They're young still. They're a novice driver. They haven't really drove as long or as much in different weather elements. And it's just them. There's nobody else in the car. So they have to sort of push through that fear of, the thunder, the lightning, the heavy rain, possible hail. Maybe there's a tornado watcher warning or a flood watcher warning going on. And they're going to have to go from point A, from their job, back to point B, their house. And let's say it's on a normal sunny day or a normal night would take them 30 minutes. With this big storm coming through, it could take them a little bit longer. So we've probably all been in a situation like that when we first started driving. We don't have a person in the back seat, or we don't have the person in the side seat with us. It's late at night. It's storming really bad. And now it's up to us to get the vehicle and ourselves home in one piece. So if we look each one of these numbers you can also say represents a paragraph. So like I said here, this pretty much shows what a 7 to 9 body paragraph essay would need to equal that 3 to 4 pages. So you're going to have to get, since you're in college now, this is really what they call a freshman level college English course. You got to get out of the habit of writing those 5-paragraph hamburger essays that you were taught in elementary school, middle school, and high school, right? Essay should have an introduction, 3 body paragraphs, and conclusion. That's all fine and dandy. That sort of gets young people to learn how to write, in the 2nd grade. And it's really easy when you get into high school and you have to take the ACT or the SAT and you got to write essays. It's easy for, one person or a group of individuals to read multiple essays, hundreds of essays that fit that 5-paragraph pattern, because they know that the first paragraph should be the introduction. The next 3 are going to be body paragraph 1, 2, and 3, and that last one is always going to be your conclusion. The problem with that is it works well there because it's more standardized. But once you get into college level English courses and you got to write longer papers and, you got to have a little bit more thought and depth and research and that type of stuff in it, you have to break away from that. And sometimes, depending on if you took an AP English class or maybe a college prep English class, your high school teacher may have explained that. Maybe you started actually going beyond the 5-paragraph essay at some point, 11th to 12th grade, I hope. But you're going to have to be able to write multiple body paragraphs to be able to get some of the page links here, right? When we get to the research paper, and that needs to be 6 to 8 pages, you're going to have at least 12 to 15 paragraphs to be able to get 6 to 8 pages, right? You just can't write a fully developed college level research paper only in 5 paragraphs, because otherwise those paragraphs are going to be very, very lengthy. And, like one paragraph would take up a page, which is not really stylistically, it doesn't look good, and coming from a audience, person that has to read and grade them, it's not going to be very good because you're not utilizing paragraph breaks. You don't really have clear unity or style or tone. So that's why you're going to have to start learning how to write more paragraphs to make your essays longer, to make them fully completed, right? So number 1 here, obviously, would be paragraph 1 is your introduction, right? It's going to set the scene and the mood. And again, if you look over here and click over, certain things that I have, it will be helpful because I give you a little bit more, additional information for that section, right? The introduction sort of going to be the opening door to your paper, right? To your story. The introduction is the first impression of the essay. It sets the mood and gives the reader / the audience a sense of what the story will feel like. The introduction is where you invite the reader / your audience into your story. You set the scene and give them the overall feeling, the dominant impression. We're going to talk a little bit about that. You want them to experience, and then I go on and give you what that introduction paragraph should have. So the dominant impression, when you think of a narrative descriptive essay, is basically the point, the main idea of that entire 3 to 4 page essay. You may have heard of thesis statement. A dominant impression is sort of like that. A thesis statement is one complete sentence, right? It's not a question. It's not 2 sentences. It's not a paragraph. It's one complete sentence that ends in a period. And it's generally the very last sentence of that introduction paragraph. So here I kind of give you, with some of these, I kind of give you some hints of what a good, strong thesis statement or a dominant impression will look like. In this case, as it relates to this particular storm essay, this night became a moment where fear slowly transformed into confidence. So we're gonna find out, right? If we read further, if we read the next 7 or 6 body paragraphs, how that moment of fear eventually transformed into confidence. How did that driver stop shaking at the wheel? How did that driver gain confidence by driving through this big storm for the first time? at night, no less, because there's a difference about driving through a thunderstorm when it's daylight compared to when it's pitch black. Paragraph 2 is going to be the background or context that the reader or the audience would need, right? Explains why the narrator was driving in this case alone, and establishes an initial mindset, and it provides weather expectations. Again, that's for this particular topic. For your particular topic, it's probably going to be a little bit different as it relates to the background and the context, because you're not doing, you're not writing an essay that explains why you are driving through a storm the first time. So sort of keep that in mind. This is more or less as a guide to sort of guide you through, creating your own rough draft, getting everything sort of set up, so you can submit it for that peer review. Paragraphs 3, 4, and 5 here deal with the rising action. This is that narrative element I was talking about, where you have exposition, rising action, climax, falling action, and then a resolution. If you think of that pyramid or that triangle for what most films use, novels use, short stories use, sort of that beginning, middle, and end aspect. And each one of your body paragraphs will have a topic sentence. So if you look, the topic sentence sort of acts as the path. It's going to really connect back to the main dominant impression or your thesis. So topic sentences are the first sentences of your body paragraph, right? Each one of your body paragraphs should have a topic sentence. Each body paragraph should have one idea per paragraph. Don't sort of try to cram in 30 ideas in one topic sentence, because again, otherwise that particular paragraph is going to go long, probably too long. It's going to be longer and lengthy, and you don't need that. Topic sentences tell your audience what this part of the story is about and how it connects to that dominant impression / thesis. What they do is keep the story organized. You have unity, you have organization, you have coherence. They move the narrative forward. That's how you're going to be able to go from page 1 to page 2 to page 3. You got to keep your story moving forward. You see that in episodic TV shows, right? Most of them are 30 minutes to an hour. They have to go from 9 o'clock to 10 o'clock. There has to be some sort of narrative elements that's helping that to move on, right? The same thing with movies. Most movies are about 2 hours in length. They have to, they start at 11 and they're supposed to be over at 1. So you have to do something, action, dialogue, setting, something's got to move it along from 11 o'clock to 12 o'clock to 1 o'clock. Same thing with your essay. You have to have stuff in there, information that's going to help move it along to page 1, to page 3, to page 4. So in this case, this particular writer has, 3 body paragraphs that are really developed, devoted to that rising action. So if you look, I gave you some examples of what those topic sentences would look like in those 3 body paragraphs. The first one, the first sign of trouble appeared as the rain shifted from drizzle to a steady, insistent sheet. Right now, it's really pouring down. So, and it also here it says details about visibility decreasing and tension rising. Now you can't see anything because you're the only car on the road. Maybe that particular road doesn't have a lot of street lights. Or maybe it's raining so hard that it doesn't really matter because you can't really see the lights. Or maybe power. Maybe lightning has struck a transformer box somewhere, and power in that particular area where you're driving through has been knocked out. So now definitely you have no moon, you have no stars, you have no street lights. There's no house lights if there's houses on the side of the road. And there's no cars coming the opposite direction. It's just you, right? And your headlights, and hopefully they work. The 4th body paragraph, right? You see this topic sentence. Within minutes, the storm intensifies. turning the road into a blur of water and shadows. So that here, this particular writer would be using a lot of sensory details and the emotional shift. Right now, panic may start to really come into play. You're worried. What if you hydroplane? Do you know which direction to turn the wheel if that happens? What happens if you run over something hard on the road during this really tremendous thunderstorm at 1 o'clock in the morning and one or two tires pop? What are you going to do then? A lot of different things, come through your. What happens if the wind is so hard it blows a branch because it's so whipping out there and it scrapes the side of your, driver's side window, and let's say it cracks it. Now you got to worry if too much wind comes, will that shatter? And now you're going to have a lot of water coming into your vehicle. Same thing if it hit your windshield or your back windshield. Other things to kind of keep in mind: do you have enough gas? Right? If you don't have enough gas and you're in this sort of predicament, what happens if you run out of gas? Or what happens if you do need gas and you're relying on gas stations to stay open, but they might have closed early because it was Sunday when this happened? Or if they lost power and the only thing you have is a debit card, then you can't necessarily use that because you have no cash, and the gas pumps, they may or may not work depending on the power situation. So there's a lot of different scenarios that could happen, right, that sometimes we don't think about until we're actually in those moments and realizing, hey, oh crap, I did have $20, but I left that on my dresser. Only thing I have is a debit card. And if the power's out, that means the internet's probably out. And that means I can't use my card. I'm at a gas station, but I can't use my card. The fifth body paragraph, again, here's another topic sentence. As the storm closes in, every mile demanded more focus than the last, increasing isolation and internal tension. So you want to kind of keep in mind that once you mention that topic sentence in that, first sentence of each one of your body paragraphs, that the sentences that come after that paragraph or later in that paragraph really support what that topic sentence is talking about, right? You want to stay on topic by doing that. That's why we say your topic sentences should come as the first sentence of your paragraphs. Now you could, see in a lot of different textbooks that they may have topic sentences at the end of the sentence or in the middle. And sometimes that works if you're a really good writer and know what you're doing. But if you're just starting off like in a freshman English class like this is, or if you're just not really up to standards with your writing or feel kind of shaky, I would keep those topic sentences at the beginning of each paragraph until you kind of get used to it and get, strength in your writing. Then we get to paragraph 6 here, which is that climactic moment, right? It's your climax. It's the turning point and realization of capability. As you can tell here by the topic sentence, the peak of the storm hit suddenly, leaving me nearly blinded behind the wheel. So, right, we're into, let's say the storm lasts 30 minutes. We're basically 15 minutes in at this point. This is where it's really getting bad, right? Lightning everywhere, thunder everywhere. It's raining sideways. It's raining hard. It could be possible hail. If you're able to hear the radio, besides the outside elements of the wind and the rain hitting that car, shaking that car, there could be a flood watch, flood warning, tornado watch, tornado warning. So now we're at the 15-minute mark, and hopefully we're driving carefully to get through this storm that we're eventually going to get out of it, right? We're getting into that falling action, which is the 7th paragraph here, where calm, returning, and reflection begins, right? The topic sentence here could be: slowly the storm began to loosen its grip. The world outside the windshield came back into focus. So at this point, maybe we're 20 minutes into the storm. We're getting close, right? The storm lasts 30 minutes. We're getting very close to the 30-minute mark. And by the time we get to that last paragraph, which in this case for this student was paragraph 8, we have the resolution or the conclusion, final reflection, return to a dominant impression, right? Restate the thesis without actually restating the thesis the same way, say it in a different way, different terms. And the topic sentence here could be, by the time I pulled into the driveway, the night felt entirely different from the one I had entered, right? You get off work at 11 o'clock and you start down that road. It's a, 30-minute, maybe 40-minute way home, possibly, depending on where you live. The storm starts to kick in about 10 minutes into that drive. And now you got the next 20 minutes of dealing with this hectic storm. And it's just you and you alone, right? You don't have anybody else to kind of take over the wheel or somebody to help you because you never drove in that. Let's just say this is the first time you actually drove in a severe storm. Um, so you're having to learn a lot that, mom and dad probably didn't really teach you when it comes to driving. Up to that point, you probably haven't never had to do any driving in a serious storm. Definitely when you go and take the driver's test and get your license, they may have questions about storms, but generally you're not going to drive or take your test when there is a big storm outside happening. So there's a lot of unknowns and a lot of things that are new to you when it comes to driving in that first storm. Hopefully you learn something from it, and whatever mistakes you might have done, you've tried to resolve those. So when you drive in storm number 2 to storm number 30, you will know better what to do and how to prepare, right? Um, in a nutshell, that's really what Essay 1 is all about. You're giving that descriptive narrative. You pick a topic and you make sure that it's in the correct MLA 9 essay format. You get stuff, down. You get it ready to upload for the peer review. And you can start that at pretty much any time. You don't have to wait. And, honestly, I wouldn't wait necessarily until next Sunday to get this started because, again, you have to read 2 peers' essays and answer those questions twice, right? One for peer A, one for peer B. So if you wait until the 25th to really start answering some of those questions, just note that from the 25th to the 1st is another week, right? The final draft is due February 1st. So you're going to have only 7 days to revise and get everything up to where it needs to be. Hopefully it will be that A or that high B. But if you wait until the very last minute to start giving constructive feedback to some of these peers, it's going to be hard for them to really take, 2 sets of, criticism. And hopefully it's positive criticism, right? We can agree to disagree on certain things, but we can do it in a way that's positive and constructive, something that's not nasty and, hateful. Folks don't like, the hateful, nasty, feedback. They usually shut down. And that's not what we're about here. There's ways to say something is poor or, sucks, let's say, without saying that it sucks and is poor. There's fancier ways, there's constructive ways to do that. And that's what I like to try to do. I like to try to give positive feedback. I want you to be the best student writer that you can be between now and, when we leave in May. I want you to better yourself in the writing. I don't want you to, get worse as time moves on. I want you to get better. And that's what your peers should be doing. Y'all should be helping each other get better, not get worse. What's the point in that? That's moving backwards, not forward. We want to move forward, or we want to move upward, not backwards. So yeah, just make sure that, you're starting to draft things out. You're not waiting to the last minute. Because like I said, today's the 15th. If you only needed 4 pages, right? Let's just say that's your goal. You want to get 4 pages. You can draft page 1 tomorrow, Friday. one tomorrow, or one the next day, Saturday, 17th. The third page on Sunday, the 18th, and you can finish it up on Martin Luther King on the 19th. Then you have from the 20th to the 25th to, send it to tutor.com or send it to me to get revisions. Or you can go ahead and start uploading it in the peer review, let's say on the 20th. And hopefully other folks would be uploading around that time. And then y'all can start communicating back and forth as it relates to that peer review sheet. Where it becomes problematic, again, like I said, I know I'm going to have folks that are going to wait until the 23rd, 24th, and 25th to upload their rough drafts. Now, keep in mind, if you wait that long, you may not have some folks that are going to want to read your paper at that point because they're trying to get done, right? They're trying to get the best possible feedback. They're using whatever time they have because technically, I mean, if you were to upload your rough draft by the 20th, if there was already a bunch of people already have done that, you might be able to get that feedback back from everybody by the 22nd, 23rd. And then you're taking the whole next week to really wrap things up, revise it up, sending tutor.com and myself drafts. So you won't necessarily have to wait maybe to February 1st to turn in that final draft. Because you use your time wisely. That's the other thing. Time management's the key when it comes to online courses. You don't want to procrastinate. You don't want to wait the last minute. That's where your writing suffers. That's where your health starts to suffer because you're up later than usual, maybe on certain nights. That's where other classes may begin to suffer because if you got multiple classes and you're procrastinating on them, the grade's going to be suffering somewhere. And you could be getting ahead somewhere else if you start this stuff a little earlier and take a little bit of time each day. You won't feel the pressure of the crunch, right? A page a day keeps that F away, right? So we're like an apple a day keeps a doctor away. A page a day keeps that F away. So kind of keep that in mind. And I will probably end our discussion there. I'll probably give another lecture video probably toward the end of next week because really week 2 is just you drafting and getting ready for the peer review. Week 3 is going to be pretty much wrapping up and getting ready to submit the final draft of SA1. I will probably start talking about the grammar quiz that's going to be coming up. I think that's maybe week 4 or week 5. I start talking about that probably a little bit in week 3. And probably toward, the end of week 3, I will start talking about SA2. So I hope you have a great rest of your week. Hope you have a good Thursday. Stay warm. It's supposed to get cooler. There's a possibility that there could be snow over the weekend or sleet or slush or whatever the case may be. Remember, Monday is a holiday. If you have in-person courses, holidays with online courses really doesn't, impact us so much because you don't have to travel anywhere. The internet stays on during holidays. So you can still work, you can still do stuff even when we are on holiday. Or, we have 6 days, Sunday to Sunday when things are turned in, you can take Sunday off, but just kind of know that when we hit back on Tuesday or Monday off, when we hit back on Tuesday, you may have to double up as it gets later in the week to get stuff done. So I hope your first week has gone well. Email me if you have any concerns, questions, issues, or if you want to start sending me drafts. I will get those back to you as quickly as I possibly can. Otherwise, I will be back in touch probably next Wednesday, next Thursday to sort of talk about week 3 stuff. Have a good one. Thanks.